All right, welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Carolyn Morris. Carolyn is a keynote speaker, communication consultant, workshop guru, life coach, and travel connoisseur. She studied communications at Utah State University and received her Master's of Strategic Communication at Westminster. She is passionate about authentic connection and believes that all relationships, whether professional or personal, are created, maintained, or destroyed by communication. Welcome to the show, Carolyn.
For having me. I am so excited to be here. Today we're going to chat a little bit about life harmonies. Because have you guys ever heard the notion of work-life balance? It is actually false. There's no such thing as work-life balance. When in the history of ever have you heard someone say, "Oh yeah, I have complete balance in my life"? Not for this, honey. No chance. We're all about creating life harmonies, and that includes all of the staccatos and the legatos and the crescendos, and we're trying to figure out how we can mitigate some of those staccatos. And staccatos are detached and abrupt notes that are in our composition, and we're constantly creating our composition every single day, which is awesome because then we get to figure out what we like and what we don't like. And how beautiful is that? Awesome sauce, right? So how can we figure out how to move from a staccato or a really detached note? For example, it kind of sounds like doot, 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 super detached. Well, how do we move from a staccato to a legato where it's more do, do, do? Sounds way better, right? And I didn't even take voice lessons, but you can feel the vibes. You can feel the vibes. So how do we create the legatos where they're connected and tied together and they're more smooth? Well, we have to figure out like what staccatos are in our lives that we want to take out. Do we really need to be involved in 12 different activities? Do I need to be involved in debate? Do I need to be involved in soccer? Do I need to be involved in rec league? Do I need to do X, Y, and Z? Like, what do you really want? How does your composition sound and feel like to you? Because whoever we associate with, they're also adding to our composition. They're also creating with us. And that's like part of the beautiful thing of life is that we get to connect with each other and we get to add our harmonies. So, for example, if your parents are at home during this COVID, you're going to be creating a lot of different harmonies, or there may be quite a few staccatos going on of, oh, wolf dog, why do I have to do that? I didn't have to do that before. Oh, that sounds terrible. I don't want to, babysit my little sibling. Staccatos happen to all of us. They happen to the best of us, really. And so instead of creating work-life balance or any type of balance that you're seeking, why don't we pay attention to what type of harmonies can we really create together? Because our teachers and our admin and our coaches and our mentors, they're all adding to our composition because we want them there, because we're actively engaged in whatever that may be, whether that's school, sports, academics, whatever you're looking to do and looking to achieve. Look for the harmonies. Look for people who are willing and able to help you to get to where you want to go. Because at the end of the day, our harmonies are ours to own. Who we allow in, what we allow in, how we compose our scores, we get to listen to that every single day. And if you don't like how it sounds, give it a little change up. Give it a little beep, bop, boop, boop, boop. And maybe it's going to sound way better. Like, figure out what you love. Figure out what staccatos you can remove from your life. Maybe you don't want to participate in a sport that season, or maybe you don't want to take that extracurricular activity on. Whatever that is, take ownership of your composition, because you have so many people that are rooting for your success and rooting for your harmonies to just be so bombastic and loud and lively, that how can we help you? And what does that look like? So make sure you remove the staccatos from your life. Make sure you own your composition. How do we create a legato experience when we have staccato after staccato after staccato? For example, I was traveling a few years ago and I found myself having staccato experiences left, right, and center. delayed flight, lost luggage. I didn't speak the language. Our rental car was given away and we had no hotel. And I'm sitting here thinking, hot dog, I'm toast. I am so toast. So I'm sitting there in the middle of a foreign city and I don't speak the language. And I look over and I see this gentleman and I approached him and I said, "Excuse me, do you happen to speak English?" And by the good graces of the heavens, he did. He added to my composition. He helped us find our train station. He helped us get tickets. And so sometimes when we have these experiences of staccato after staccato after staccato, we need to bring someone in. We need to ask for help and we need to make sure that we're open to that, because he started creating a legato experience for us because it was a train wreck the second we missed our flight. Lost luggage, hotel gone, rental car gone. Oh, it was a mess, my friends, an absolute mess. So how are we going to create our composition? By taking ownership, removing the staccatos, and creating the harmonies that we need. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me today. I'm so excited to be with you.
Thanks, Carolyn. So I love this idea of removing the staccatos so that we can find more harmonies in our life. However, this goes against conventional wisdom, right? So at least when I was a kid, I'm in high school and everyone told me, do as many things as you can because then you're going to get accepted into the college of your choice. So make sure you're doing as many extracurriculars as you can, be your best at everything. Do you think that's still the best advice to follow, that we should try to do as many things as we can?
I think there's a lot to be said about depth and breadth, because if I'm good or mediocre at a few different things, then great. If that's what I want, if that's what I want my composition to sound like, if I want to just continually play Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars, then I'm going to continually spread my fingers out and figure out what I like. But there's a point of like exploring and figuring out what we love. Something that I love that I had no idea that I enjoyed was pottery. I come from a very athletic family, and so we did sports growing up. And then I found myself in high school taking a pottery class, and I absolutely loved it. Was I good at it? No, I was actually really terrible. And in an artistic form, it was mediocre at best, and that was being generous, but I loved it. I had such a good time with it. And so I was able to take more classes after college because that was something that I enjoyed doing. So figuring out what we love to do, so we put so much pressure on these high school years, and I can totally appreciate that there's a lot that rides on that, but we also have to understand that we're lifelong learners. I didn't realize how much I loved to hike until after college. So we are constantly learning and growing and developing, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, you know what, I need a break. I need to cool the jets a little bit because I've been going 1,000 miles an hour and it's been wild. I just want to enjoy and I want to have that experience of going a few layers deeper on this specific thing, whether that's sports, academics, extracurricular activities, gardening, whatever it is that you like to do it. Life is way too short. Life is way too short.
It is short. I totally agree with you. When you talk about writing your composition and doing what you love, you mentioned pottery, but what about those kids who really don't know what they love because they've been kind of trapped in this track where this is what you do because this is what your siblings did, or this is what you do because it will get you ahead in life? What are some things that we could be doing, especially right now while we're stuck at home, to figure out what we love, what we want to write about, what we want to be in harmony with?
I hear you loud and clear, loud and clear. Something that I have found is, what am I curious about? What do I want to learn more about? Because to be fair, I don't want to learn more about social media. That's not my jam. What I want to learn more about is, well, I want to learn how to be a better cook. So I'm going to get onto YouTube University and I'm going to figure out how to become a better cook. Or I want to learn more about how to become a great guitarist. I have a guitar in my closet and I haven't pulled it out in over a decade. So if I want to go and figure that out, like, explore what you're curious about, explore what you are interested in, because what I'm interested in and what you may could be totally different. And so what lights your fire? What makes you excited? Like, oh, you know what? I really want to learn more about that. I'm going to dive in now because I've got a little bit of time. So let's rock and roll. Let's do it. Feel free to explore. That's what life is all about. Explore what you love.
That's right. I wish I had YouTube when I was a kid, because I see
Yeah.
what my kids are doing now, and their favorite channels. They watch YouTube for entertainment by just going to things. For me, when I go to YouTube, it's because I'm searching for something and I want to see a particular thing. But my kids don't binge Netflix. They don't binge on other TV shows. They binge YouTube. And so their experience of learning things and being exposed to new ideas is totally unique and different from what I grew up with. When you think about your own upbringing and how you developed your own interests and talents, are there any things that you wish you had done differently?
Oh, totally. I think there's always going to be times where it's like, gosh, I wish I would have stuck with that just a little bit longer, maybe just one more season. One thing that I wish I would have tried was lacrosse. I think I would have had a riot playing lacrosse because I grew up in a very athletic family. And so all of my siblings played sports. Every single one of us, every single season, we were in a sport: football, soccer, softball, track and field. It just went on and on and on. And so I think that something that would have been so fun for me is to try lacrosse. Even to this day, I'm like, gosh, here I am in my 30s and I still want to try lacrosse. And so it's like, is there a rec league for lacrosse rookies? Like, I want to try that. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's always like, let your curiosity lead you to something that you love, because you might find something that you didn't even know existed. And so often we've been kind of molded because of familial or cultural circumstances. And if that works for you and you want to continue with that mold, that's totally fine. Be brave enough to break that mold. Be brave enough to say, you know what? I'm going to try something different this season and commit to it. Do it. And you'll see like, hey, I think I actually love that. I think I like lacrosse. And then you can stick with it. What's the worst that could happen? You don't like it? Okay. Well, now you know.
That's true. And I can actually vouch for that. You know, for me, it wasn't lacrosse. The sport, as I've gotten older, that I've become more and more interested in was rugby. And when I was in my 30s, I was a professor in Wisconsin, and the school was looking for a faculty advisor for the rugby team. And my hand shot up. I became the advisor for the rugby team, started going to all the practices and games. And I never really got into playing rugby, but I got to experience rugby from that faculty side. And it was just a really cool experience. I did, however, start doing intramural sports with the students. I was the old professor who would play ultimate frisbee and volleyball. And it was one of those things where I'm so glad I did it. Even though I stuck out a little bit because I was older and overweight, I still had a great experience with that. So we absolutely can, you know, take on new things when we're older. Now, Carolyn, I know that you are an expert in communication. And right now is such an interesting time because we're communicating in different ways than we have in the past, just out of necessity. A lot of us are stuck at home. Even those of us who aren't big fans of social media are probably using it more, and we're using it in different ways. Now, for the kids that are stuck home right now, do you have any tips or suggestions for ways that they might communicate with one another and with other people that will enrich their lives? Maybe start to do some things now that they haven't tried before, or try to communicate in different ways. I don't know where you're going to go with this. I'm not a communications expert, but I'm just curious, you know, what can or should we be doing right now?
That's a phenomenal question, because communication truly will make or break every single relationship. Because if we are constantly communicating, whether that's verbal, tone, written, text message, social media, pictures are a form of communication, music is a huge form of communication. And so often that when we're in these really dynamic circumstances, whether that's in a pandemic or post-pandemic, we have to express our needs. We have to understand what our needs are. And so there's 3 different ways of styles of communication. There's passive, aggressive, and assertive. And passive, people are kind of more like reserved, wallflower, like I don't want to ruffle any feathers, like I'll just go with the flow. And maybe that's their personality, and that's totally fine. Then you have people who are really aggressive, who are manipulative, who twist the words, who may like really raise their voice and get really loud and intense. And it's like, whoa, I need you to cool your jets because you are so fired up that I can't even comprehend what's going on. And then there's people who are assertive, who are clear, respectful, and kind in their communication. And so some tips for being assertive is using I statements. So frequently we want to shove our emotions off to other people of like, well, you did this. And it's like, whoa. I need to own my emotion. I feel hurt when things like that are said to me or about me. We need to use I statements so that we own our feelings and that we can express those, because ownership is a huge part of building relationships and building trust. We need to make requests and not demands. So for example, would you mind taking out the garbage? I would love to take out the garbage. Instead of, you're going to take out the garbage. And it's like, whoa, are your legs broken? Like, what happened? Because turns out I'm a human. I need to have choices. And when you empower me to have choices, I could have said, no, that like, I'll take it out later. That's another form of communication. Like, we need to be establishing our boundaries. And boundaries at their finest is really a framework or a guideline for people to interact with us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. We are constantly evolving. And as we evolve, so do our boundaries. And something that I have found insanely helpful, incredibly helpful, is the 80-20 rule. We need to give real-time feedback 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time, we may be so shocked as to what happened that we need to take some time and process that. And that's okay. That's why we've got a 20%. But 80% of the time, we need to give real-time feedback. So make sure that we're using assertive language, using I statements, making requests, establishing our boundaries, and giving 80% real-time feedback. Those are probably the 4 things I would suggest that we could implement immediately and see catastrophically different results because we're willing to own our emotions and to have the 80% real-time feedback. I think that's really critical.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. I hadn't really thought of like assertive communication before, but your ideas on that and the 80-20 rule and using the I statements, that would make such a huge difference. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I hadn't really thought about other forms of communication, but when you mentioned music, it reminded me about a month ago, I put my first ever music video up online. I put it on YouTube for my students, so
Yeah.
Me and my kids sang a parody song and we put it up on YouTube. And the response was, oh, Mr. C, this was really cool to see. We enjoyed it or whatever. But then I actually had a few students who wrote some songs of their own and posted them and sent them to me. And that was their way of communicating with me and expressing something, especially during a really trying time, to express their feelings. And they could do that through music better than they could by just sending me an email or a discussion message or something like that. So I'm glad that you didn't overlook that form of communication. That's really important. So Carolyn, if kids want, first, thank you so much for being here today. It's been wonderful to hear from you and to hear your message. If kids want to learn more about you and who you are and what you teach, where should they go?
So I have a few different options. I have Instagram, which is Orange Soul Tribe. I have a Facebook page, which is Orange Soul. And then you can hit me up on my website at myorangesoul.com. I would love to have you come join and hang out with me. I put out tips and tricks almost every day. So come join. Come have a good time with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it.